This is Dr. Adriel Bowles of Hobnob Games, and this is the 10th tutorial of our intermediate series. And today we're going to be talking about set mining. As always, you can find this tutorial along with all of our video tutorials at hobnob.games, where you can also download and play on our poker app. So today we're going to be talking about an extension of our previous tutorial, which was on implied odds. An extension of this is this concept of set mining. So what is set mining? Set mining is when we call a pre-flop raise with a pocket pair, but we know we're behind at that point. But we're calling anyways in an attempt to hit a set and try to win a huge pot. Okay, so let's go over an example of this. Let's say we're playing in a 2-5 game and they're $500 stacks. We raise to $20, some standard open raise in this game with pocket eights. And really, this could be any pocket pair. Maybe you have pocket twos, maybe you have pocket threes. You just have some pocket pair other than queens plus. But then a rock, a very, very conservative player who only 3-bets with the strongest hands, with only pocket aces and maybe pocket kings, then 3-bets you to $60. Well, this isn't very good because we feel like our pocket pair, even if we had pocket tens here, we're probably way behind this person who just 3-bet us. And there's $40 to call because we raised with 20, they 3-bet us to 60. It would cost us $40 to call. Okay, so we're behind, but just because we're behind doesn't mean that we have to fold here. We could consider set mining, trying to flop a set in order to win a really big pot. But we need to do a little bit of math here, a little bit of math to help light our way. So when you're set mining and you're trying to hit a set and you hold a pocket pair, then basically you have 2 outs. You have 2 outs to try to hit a set on the flop. And the probability of hitting a set on the flop is about roughly 7 to 1, which means it happens about 11% of the time. Okay, so the vast majority of the time, the flop will come and you will not hit your set and you'll just have to fold. And you're gonna lose that $60. In this case, you have to call another $40 and you lose that extra $40 bet. So, because the odds are 7 to 1, that means for every 7 times that we won't hit our set, there will be 1 time which we do hit our set. So let's say the first time we call and we don't hit our set, we just lost $40. Then the second time, we lost $40. The third time, we lost $40. In fact, 7 times will happen, and each of those 7 times, we're going to lose $40. On the 8th time, that's when we can expect to hit our set. And of course, it won't always happen like this. You miss 7 in a row, and you hit the 8th one. But about every 1 in 8, you will hit your set. So on that 1 in 8 times when you do hit your set, how much money do we have to make in order to make up for our previous 7 losses? Well, we need to figure out how much did I lose in those previous 7 losses. So there were 7 times, and I lost $40 each of those times. So it's going to cost me $280 to call this 3-bet on those 7 times in which I missed my set. So that means that on that 8th time, when we do hit our set, we have to make at least $280. If we can make $280, we break even. That because we lost $280 in the 7 hands in which we missed our set, and then we make $280 on the 1 out of 8 times we do hit our set. This is not even profitable. That's just the break-even point. So we have to make $280 minimum just to break even here. But, and this is a very, very big but, there's more to it than just that. Because sometimes we flop our set, hey, hallelujah, and then we still lose the pot. So when he hits a bigger set, or they make a straight, or they make a flush, or something happens, you hit a set and you still lose the hand. When this happens, do we lose a little bit of money? No, we lose a lot of money. So we need to factor this in because even on some of those 1 in 8 times when we do hit our set, we end up losing. And when we do, we lose a lot of money. Hence, we need to kind of mathematically account for those inevitable losses. So one rule of thumb that a lot of poker pros use is that instead of multiplying how much you need to call the bet by 7 to make up for those times when you don't make a set, you need to increase that number to 10. And so you increase it by 3 more to 10 to help you make up for the times when you flop a set and then you lose a really big pot. So now if you take the amount you have to call and multiply it by 10, that's really a more realistic estimate of how much money you need to make if you hit your set in order to break even. And in fact, some players even say, well, 10's not enough. We really need to increase this to 15. So if you want to be a little bit more conservative, especially if the stacks are really deep, and so you might lose really big pots when you hit your set and lose, then some people say you want to be a little more conservative, multiply the amount that you have to call by 15 to be very conservative. So let's go back to our early example. We're in our 2-5 game. We raise with our pocket pair to $20, and then this rock player 3-bets us to $60. And so we have to contemplate whether it's worth it for us to call $40 in this situation. So the amount we need to call is $40. So multiply that by 10 if we're being a bit more liberal. And we have to make at least $400 from this opponent if we flop a set in order to just break even. If we can make more than $400, then it's profitable. If we don't think we can get $400, then it's not profitable and you should just fold. And again, if you want to be a little bit more conservative, multiply that $40 times 15 and make it $600. So the key question you have to ask yourself then is, if I hit my set, if I call this 3-bet and I hit my set on the flop, can I get that either $400 or $600 if you want to be a bit more conservative if I hit my set? And this is where you really have to be honest with yourself in answering some very key questions. The first one is easy. Just physically look at the stack sizes. In this 2-5 game where there was $500 stacks, well, after you each called up $60 on the flop, that means there's $440 behind. So is it physically possible that you can get your $400? It's physically possible. That's a good start. It's not the end, but it's a good start. If you're being more conservative and you say, I need to win 600 or more to make this profitable, then it's not physically possible. There's only $440 left in the stacks, and therefore you just have to fold because you cannot, it's not physically possible for you to get the money if you hit your set that you need to get. But even if it is physically possible, let's say you're playing $1,000 stacks, and so now there's $940 behind in the stacks. Now you say, yes, it is physically possible that I can get that much money if I hit my set. We're still not there. There's still a few more boxes we have to check in order to say, yes, I'm going to call this 3-bet. The other one is, another consideration is, does my opponent absolutely have a big pocket pair? Do they have pocket aces or pocket kings the way that I think my opponent does? Because if the answer is no, let's say this is an opponent who 3-bets with a really wide range and will 3-bet sometimes with like ace-queen suited or a whole bunch, or 9-10 suited even sometimes. Well, if that's the case, then they're not guaranteed to put all their money in the middle every single time. They might fold because they don't necessarily have aces or kings. So you have to know, is this player absolutely has a big pocket pair? And this is leading up to a very, very important third consideration. You have to be able to be confident that your opponent is not going to fold, because what would absolutely be devastating is you hit your set and then you go all in and then your opponent folds. That is going to make the math here devastating. And if that's a possibility, then you need to just fold, because you have to be guaranteed to make up that $400 or $600 each time. So you have to know that your opponent will not fold. So not only do you think they have a big pocket pair, but they're just simply not going to fold their hand and get scared away. So a couple of considerations we have to think about in terms of trying to determine, will my opponent fold or will my opponent not fold? The first one is pretty obvious, the opponent type. Is this player a rock, a conservative, a player who, is probably has aces or kings and they're never folding their aces or kings no matter what happens on the flop? So if it's a more wild type of player, a more maniac, well, first of all, they may not have a big pocket pair. If they're 3-betting wildly, then that's a problem. Another is our opponent's emotional state. Some players, maybe are typically not that conservative, but they're tilting right now. They've been losing, and you can tell they're visibly angry, upset, emotional. They're on tilt, and you think, well, this player might only have ace-king, but may not even fold ace-king to an all-in on the flop because they're just on monkey tilt right now. Another consideration is your table image. What does your opponent think of you? If your opponent thinks that you are a very, very conservative player, then suddenly you go all in on the flop, they might find a fold with their aces or kings because they think you're so conservative that you must have their pocket pair beat. Or another possibility is here, the wilder your table image. So the more that they think that you'll just shove all in with any two cards, then the more likely that they will not fold their hand. So it helps here to have a more wild table image. If you have a very conservative table image and the opponent thinks you're very conservative, you need to consider folding in this spot. You probably don't have the implied odds in order to effectively set mine. Okay, I also want to follow this up with a bit of a cautionary tale. This idea of no set, no bet. Because I learned about set mining and I started using it in practice and it worked really well and I won some really, really big pots this way. But every now and then I would start to get lured into the dark side. So maybe I'd have something like pocket tens and a very conservative player would 3-bet me. And I would look at everything and I go, okay, I think I can effectively set mine here. We got the money in the stacks. It's a conservative player. The player thinks I'm wild. All the boxes are checked here. I can set mine. So I set mine and I miss my set on the flop, but the board comes like 8 high. And now I get tempted. Now I go, wait a minute. Okay, I missed my set, but I have pocket tens and the board came 8-6-2. My tens might be good here. It's kind of hard to fold in that situation. And then I start trying to convince myself that maybe they have ace king and my hand is good right now. Maybe I shouldn't necessarily fold here. It's very, very easy to convince someone of something if they want to believe that it's true. People have a very strong tendency to believe what they want to believe. And that includes ourselves. I want to believe that my tens are good here. I don't want to fold. So I can find a way to convince myself that maybe even though I missed my set, I'm still going to call the continuation bet on the flop. And I'm going to call with this hand down. Every time I have done that, I've been burned every single time, hoping they have ace king, call down with my tens, only to be shown aces and kings every single time. And then I lose a really big pot because I got tempted by the dark side here. That's why it's so important to follow this motto of no set, no bet. Stay disciplined. If you miss your set, then fold. Basically turn whatever pocket pair you have into pocket twos. If you miss your set, then you're not putting another dollar into that pot. So do not alter your course. Trust in your original read that this person does have aces and kings and they're never folding. If you trust in that read, then you won't be tempted to call down with an overpair to the board. So just a bit of a cautionary tale here. So what's next? In our next tutorial video, we're going to be talking about table image, expanding on what we were just discussing at the end here in terms of like what other players at the table think of you and how you can use that perception to your advantage. As always, you can find this video and all of our tutorial videos at hobnob.games. I'll see you next time.